Putin's power through faith. And Scott, I think you wanted to go ahead and lead us off on that one.
Sure. Yeah, this was from an article found in Religious News Service, or religiousnews.com. The title of the article was "Holy Wars: How a Cathedral of Guns and Glory Symbolizes Putin's Russia." And it was written by an author by the name of Lena Sursko-Harned. Yeah, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. But basically, what it's about is they are reflecting on the dedication of this new, the main church of the Russian armed forces. And so what they're doing here is it's like, I mean, this comes as no surprise to many of us that have seen this kind of thing before, but they're kind of lumping together the Russian religion and the Russian military, and kind of creating this mythos of this great Russia that's going to reclaim its position in the world. And so it's all about, they talk about these pieces of art that display past Russian conquests and Russian leaders, Stalin and Putin, of course. And they're kind of lumping it all together. They're trying to say that as the Russian religion progresses, so does the Russian military, so does the Russian people, that kind of thing. And there was a quote in there that I want to bring up that really stuck out with me. It was the rhetoric for this militant religious nationalism has been on display as Russia threatened to and ultimately did invade Ukraine. During a speech in February, Putin bizarrely called for the denazification of Ukraine. Now, Putin's claim that Ukraine's government is run by Nazis is absurd. However, the manipulation of this image makes sense in the framework of this ideology. So it's all about crafting this militia, or this mythology, this ideology that kind of brings together the Russian religion and the military. And when I was reading that quote, the word absurd kind of jumped out at me, and I was like, that's that quote from Voltaire, right? That I'm sure we've all heard. It's anyone who can make you believe absurdities can make you commit atrocities. And so it's like, the Russian military is co-opting their morality and the moral obligation by kind of lumping together the Russian religion and with the rest of what they have going on there. And so what it really does is it's a system of manipulation. We've seen that Putin is not averse to using misinformation and manipulation, and this is just kind of part and parcel with what's been going on with the progression of the great Russia over the rest of the world.
Yeah, and this article was primarily on how this cathedral built for the armed forces is really kind of a symbol for Putin's Russia. And there's a tremendous amount of symbolism in that. But before I talk a little bit about that, August, what was your take on this?
So I do want to reiterate what Scott said about the clash of religion and military and government here. I think it is an objective fact that anytime this kind of meshing of these two or three different areas of human life, it has not gone well at all. In fact, I would say many, many times it has actually been some of the worst atrocities ever in human history. So I think it's very important to pinpoint that in general, because I feel like many countries still aren't getting the idea that religion and military and government should sort of in some way or another have checks and balances at the very least, if not just separate in their entireties.
And it's interesting that you bring up the history because it does seem like Putin is a great study of history, because he basically tries to bring this back to a lot of the great Russian victories throughout history, going all the way back to even the medieval times. But like so this church that he built, well, not that he built, but that was built for the armed forces. They say it's 75 meters tall, symbolizing the 75th anniversary. This was when they were going to do it back in 2020, but unfortunately, fortunately or unfortunately, however you want to look at it, pushed the dedication back. But that the bell tower, 75 meters tall, symbolizing the 75th anniversary from the end of World War II. The dome's diameter, 1945 meters, marking the year of victory of 1945. The smaller dome being 1418 meters, representing the 1,418 days that the war lasted. So, I mean, there's a lot of symbology, whether or not anybody actually sees it. I mean, one could argue, well, we've done that with One World Trade Center, making it 1,776 feet tall. But it does, we built that as a monument to our strife as well, for 9/11. But we don't go back into like medieval times.
Right. So what Russia was really doing is they're kind of weaving in these historical stories, and they're kind of combining the historical versions of the stories with the mythology and this idea that it kind of smacks a little bit about of the way that North Korea kind of does their thing. That they kind of tie this divinity in with the leadership of the country. And August mentioned separation of church and state, and I think that this really highlights one of the important, if not the most important reason to have the separation of church and state, and that is that whether or not it's intentional, religion can be used as a highly effective tool for manipulation. And so if it's put in the wrong hands, we know power corrupts, right? And so if you lump all the power, if you kind of gather up all of the power into a single person, or into a single office, or into a single branch of the leadership, it can really, the temptation, even if we be as charitable as we can as far as what's happening here, we could certainly see that there's a massive potential for abuse here, even if we set aside any actual observations of abuse, but certainly there's potential abuse there. And I think it really shows the strength of the idea of the separation of church and state. And hopefully it would be a red flag, well, pardon the pun, right? Red flag kind of going off to a warning. If we see these kind of things happening in the United States, we see these AR-15 church services, we see the bullet crowns and things like that. And, it really should be a heads up to us, be careful where you tread. Those who don't understand the history are doomed to repeat it. And there's certain things that we don't want to repeat about history.
And just for note, the whole, red flag, obviously Russia is not a communist country anymore. Now, whether or not they stay that way, we'll see how the pages of history fall on that one. But, you make a great point, Scott, on the separation of church and state, because, we've heard not necessarily just internet apologists, but we've also heard certain politicians say that they would kind of prefer a one church, a one God, and emphasize on the one nation under God portion that was, added into the 40s, but we won't go into that right now. But August, I think you had something to say on that, about how it seems like some people want to undo that church and state and aren't sure how to feel about it with Russia.
Right. So something I've been seeing as of late is that the specifically the right-wing side of America and American politics, I've seen many of them claiming that they support Putin, and then, you know, I wouldn't say maybe half of them, I don't really know exactly how many, but I have seen both sides of it, where some of them are very against Putin and some of them are, you know, supporting him fully and entirely. So I thought that was a kind of weird dynamic, especially since the right tends to be statistically more religious. I thought that was an interesting thing that I've been seeing recently in the news and different interviews on the street. Obviously, it's more of anecdotal, and so, you know, take that with a grain of salt. But I just wanted to see what you guys thought about that.
Well, we can certainly see some cognitive dissonance happening there. If one group supports Putin's actions, and you know, we can also see that the actions taking place in Ukraine today are kind of a reflection of this idea of this, you know, divine destiny of this great Russia. But you know, if there are certain groups that appear to be supporting that type of action, the people in the group, you know, you can almost see it on their faces. You can almost see it on their faces. The conflict, you know, on one hand, they might disagree with what's happening. On the other hand, they're thinking, well, you know, this person that I respect kind of supports that. And so it's interesting to see. I mean, I consider myself to be a student of human behavior, right? So it's fascinating to watch. If it weren't so scary, if it weren't so frightening to see this happening. And, you know, again, I just hope we can take it as a wake up call. We need to be, you know, there's a slippery slope there to be slipped on, and so we need to make sure that we have strong footing as we go forward ourselves as well.
Yeah, to see the kind of mental and verbal gymnastics that some people are going through, and you know, some people saying, you know, the quiet thing loud and the loud thing quiet. You know, it's got to be a really bad time to show your true colors, I guess, because, you know, yeah, we still have a former president who, you know, is very much enamored with what they've done over there in Russia, and, you know, with the decisiveness over you know, annexing Crimea, you know, and in a lot of different respects. You know, you're kind of wondering, well, wait a minute, what side do you actually fall on? You don't want to necessarily make it a for us or against us, because right now we don't have a direct dog in this fight, and hopefully we don't. Hopefully it will be resolved. I don't see it happening anytime soon, but hopefully it will be.
Well, you say it might be a bad time to show your true colors, but we could also say now's a great time to show your true colors. I mean, I have a lot of respect for somebody that would stand up to, you know, if they're part of a group that's leaning one way and they say, no, this is wrong. You know, to me, that carries a lot of weight, and and I have a lot of respect for that kind of thing.
And we are seeing that. We are definitely seeing, you know, so many people throw up the blue and yellow of, you know, Ukraine, you know, supporting them for their right to exist. You know, and that's basically what that is. Like, yeah, you know, go freedom, you know, support people who want to remain free. Mm-hmm. You know, that's I don't know anybody who can really say, no, we don't like that, other than, you know, people who are, you know, for fascism, who are for you know, this annexation, and you know, for the lies, for the absolute vile lies that are being told.
Yeah, and if I may jump in here real quick. So I wonder, that I've been thinking about it a little bit, the right wing is also the side that is notoriously associated with patriotism and nationalism. You know, take that word however you may. But I wonder if Russia started wanting to expand their Great Russia into places either that the United States has like territory in, or just the mainland itself, I wonder if they would change their mind if it became, now they're attacking our country. I wonder if that would change some minds, because I really feel like it would.
I would hope so. I mean, right now it seems that old countries or old territories of Russia are the ones that are being sought after. But that also kind of makes me wonder, is like, okay, so how far do you really want to go into that? Because I'm pretty sure that good portions of Germany would not like them to be taken over again. I don't know. I just have the feeling that, Germany, after being reunified, would like to stay that way.
So we need to keep an eye on Alaska, because of course, you can see Russia right from your step in Alaska. And so it's like right over the border there. So we got to be careful there. Let's keep an eye on, we want to keep Alaska, I think.
Right. And that's why I think it's so, I feel like a lot of people think that this is such a faraway issue when Russia is literally right there.
Yeah.
I mean, the world is round, as we all know, or at least most of us. So like Russia's right there, and I don't really get it, but I guess everyone's entitled. And I wonder if the former president may or may not have any kind of influence in that, because I have seen maybe a correlation between supporters of the former president and supporters of Putin's actions at this time. So that's all just speculation and just from what I've seen. So everyone, obviously do your own research, look up your own statistics, but that's just what I've seen. So I wonder if there's any kind of correlation there, and if people would change their mind if they remember that Alaska is butting right up to Russia.
Yeah, I think Palin was, well, hopefully Palin was making a little bit of a joke when she said that, but it's hard to tell, and that goes back to the whole, saying the loud thing quiet and the quiet thing loud. And I think we're going to be seeing a little bit more of that. Hopefully, this allows, a little bit more bipartisan of saying, no, we need to go ahead and, support freedom. We need to go ahead and make sure that, you cannot just go to your neighbor's house and say, hey, by the way, mindsies, get out. Okay. We can't have any of that. But let's go ahead and get some final thoughts, and we'll start with August.
I think really this boils down to church and state need to be separate. And I understand other countries follow different rules, but being a secular humanist myself and following secular policies and whatnot, I believe that separation of church and state is critical for the progressive world. And we really need to focus on that to prevent at least a portion of these atrocities from happening.
Well said. Well said. Scott?
Yeah, I would just echo what August just said. I mean, it's right. It's happening right there in front of us. There's clearly not a separation of church and state. And so I hope that we can, the rest of the world can take this as a lesson. We can see at least what could potentially happen if we start mixing those things. I think a separation of church and state, I think, is just fundamentally key to having free people. And, I just hope that at the very least, my heart goes out to the people that are directly affected by this. But, if there is anything that can be anything good that can be gleaned out of this, I hope that we can at least learn, what could potentially happen there and not make those same mistakes.
Yeah, we definitely need to have, good pathways to more secular thinking, and just that, decisions when it comes to all people should be made more scientifically, more socially conscious, because the Bible has a very bad track record of, how to treat people.